Pokémon is a huge series, and there are tons of things, even in just the games, that can go unnoticed really easily. So, in this video, I have rounded up 12 crazy things in Pokémon that you didn't notice. This first one has to do with Pokémon Scarlet and Violet and the Teal Mask DLC. One of the key locations in the Teal Mask is the Crystal Pool at the top of Oni Mountain. And an interesting thing about this place that's easy to miss is that the crystals in the Crystal Pool are actually positioned in the shape of the baby form of Terapagos, which is a really cool reference. Following up Scarlet and Violet, Pokémon Legends ZA is obviously the game that is due to be released next, and a neat thing involving it is that with it in consideration, the player character designs of each one of the Kalos-focused games are actually modeled after each of Kalos' 3 main legendary Pokémon. As Kalem's design matches Xerneas, Serena's design matches Yveltal, and now with ZA, the player characters of that game match Zygarde. Something very interesting about the elemental monkeys, considering that it's kind of a random detail that doesn't really relate to the rest of their origins, is that they each have a playing card suit at the end of their tails. Pansage has a heart, Pansear has a spade, and Panpour has a club. Again, very out of nowhere for these Pokemon, yet it's obviously very intentional, and it also inadvertently implies the possibility of potentially getting a 4th monkey that has a diamond at the end of its tail, as that is the one playing card suit that is not represented here. So maybe that's something that we'll get to see someday. This next one has to do with Lillie and a potential reason as to why Clefairy is her signature Pokemon. Other than Cosmog, Clefairy is likely Lillie's signature Pokemon because it's a Pokemon from outer space, just like the Ultra Beasts that her mom, Lusamine, is so obsessed with. This is likely the same reason why Lusamine also has a Clefable, which as the evolved form of Clefairy, is also very fitting for Lillie's mom to have, with Lillie obviously owning a Clefairy herself. So there's actually a ton of meaning behind these two Pokemon being on these two characters' teams. There are some depictions of Sentret that show it having different colored toes compared to the rest of its feet, instead of its feet being one solid color like in its official design. For example, Sentret appears this way in both the anime and in Pokemon Stadium 2. While subtle changes to Pokemon designs shortly after their release were fairly common in Pokemon's early days, this difference to Sentret's design can even be seen in the X and Y series of the anime, meaning that it maintained a presence in the series for over a decade after it should have been corrected, which is pretty crazy. And on that note, a big shout out to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. These two just dropped some new boxes full of authentic Japanese snacks and treats that can be delivered right to your door every month. Summer is now in full swing, which means these boxes are full of yummy summer treats. If you pick up the Tokyo Treat box, you'll get lots of fruity, sweet, and even sour treats, and also the absolutely goated cookies and cream flavored Kit Kats, which are amazing. Sakura Co has also got you covered because as a monthly Japanese artisan snack box, it specializes in the culture of Japan, which brings you stuff like authentic teas and even authentic Japanese tableware, like this beautiful dish featuring Mount Fuji. That's also just a taste of what these boxes have to offer, so if you want to discover all of the yumminess for yourself, you can do so by clicking the link in the description, and when you use code HOOPS at checkout, it'll also get you $5 off of your first box, which also directly supports the channel right back here. so be sure to check that out, and a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for supporting the channel. In some other recent videos, I've covered some early names for various Pokemon and locations that were recently leaked. These names were considered at the time, but ended up getting rejected, and I've got some more to highlight today concerning the early potential names for characters from Pokemon Red and Blue. Some of the highlights here include Sabrina, who was proposed to be named Zinnia, which is really interesting in hindsight considering we did get a character named Zinnia later on. Giovanni was also reportedly going to be named Hemlock at one point, which is interesting enough on its own, but also if you're a follower of my channel, you will know that I actually named the Professor character in my Pokemon Crimson and Ivy series Hemlock, so I thought that one was especially noteworthy. Other early names include Rocky for Brock, which says it was rejected because it would have connected too heavily to the Rocky movies, and for Red, there were apparently a bunch of name proposals, including Casey, Chris, Pat, Corey, Jackie, Morgan, Terry, and even Ashley. Ash is also a name that is proposed here, but instead of Ash Ketchum, the name suggested is Ash Tosi. This is a mix-up of the name Satoshi, as in Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri, and the notes for the name mentioned that the last name might sound a little weird, but if Pokemon ended up catching on, then it won't end up coming off as weird as it sounds, citing examples like Han Solo and Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, which overall is a pretty interesting peek behind the development curtain. It is possible that Iron Jugulis actually makes a reference to Pulseman, which is another game made by Pokemon developer Game Freak. In its Pokemon Scarlet Dex entry, it says that Iron Jugulis resembles a certain Pokemon introduced in a paranormal magazine, described as the offspring of a Hydreigon that fell in love with a robot. This is extremely similar to the plot of Pulseman, as Pulseman himself is the offspring of a man who fell in love with an AI robot that he created. Absol is known as the Disaster Pokemon, and its Pokedex entries say that it can sense when a disaster is about to strike. This is actually supported in-game, believe it or not, as many of the places where you can find Absol in the wild are where disasters have occurred or will occur, such as in Tapu Village, which was destroyed by Tapu Bulu, on Mount Coronet in Pokemon Platinum, which is where Giratina is unleashed by Team Galactic, and at the Giant Chasm in Black and White, which is where Qrem is located. And the map description for this area even states that disasters will follow if you approach it. A cool detail about Zacian and Zamazenta that a lot of people probably haven't noticed, and understandably so, because it's not exactly visible most of the time, is that the pads on their feet are actually shaped like a sword and a shield. Spinda is a unique, but not exactly popular or very usable Pokemon, so a detail about it that's easily overlooked is that its base stat total is 360, as in 360 degrees, which is a reference to its theme of spinning around. On the other end of the popularity spectrum, Garchomp is obviously one of the most popular Pokemon ever, and one super peculiar thing about it is that essentially every Garchomp card in the TCG depicts a female Garchomp. In case you forgot, Garchomp is a Pokemon with a gender difference, and essentially every Garchomp card shows off exclusively female Garchomp, which is pretty interesting. Something regarding Latios and Latias that is very interesting is something that is buried deep in the archives of Pokemon's history. On this early Japanese teaser poster for the Pokemon Heroes movie, which was prior to the movie even being fully unveiled, it features Latios and Latias, as you might expect, except their designs are noticeably different. Not only do they have this ancient-looking silhouette to them, but their bodies are noticeably different as well, with their designs here almost looking griffin-like. I took the liberty of commissioning some artwork from my guy R. Grey Wind to see what these versions of these Pokemon could have truly looked like in full, and it's honestly a super fascinating glimpse at the development of this movie and these Pokemon. With that said, however, these aren't necessarily beta designs or anything like that, and could just be ancient in-universe depictions of the Pokemon, or something to that effect. But nevertheless, it's a pretty interesting piece of Gen 3 era history that most people likely have never seen. That is about all I have got for this video though, so be sure to let me know all your thoughts about this stuff in the comments, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more. I'll see you again soon with another new video too. Thanks so much for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.